You've probably seen a mosque or heard the word Islam in the news, but almost 2 billion people around the world trace their faith back to one story, one that starts 14 centuries ago in the deserts of Arabia. This is the story of how Islam began. 600 years after Jesus, Arabia sat between two great empires, Byzantine Rome to the northwest, Persia to the northeast, but the peninsula itself belonged to no one. Arabia was home to nomadic and settled Arab tribes, organized around clans and kinship rather than kings. Honor, tribal loyalty, and trade held society together more than any central government. Mecca was a major stop on regional trade routes and home to the Kaaba, a shrine that had long drawn pilgrims from across Arabia. Before Islam, it reportedly housed statues representing many different deities. Arabia wasn't religiously uniform. Alongside polytheistic tribal religions, Jewish and Christian communities had settled across the peninsula for centuries, and Persian Zoroastrian influence reached the eastern regions. Into this world, around the year 570, a boy was born in Mecca. Muhammad ibn Abdullah was orphaned young. His father died before his birth, his mother when he was 6. He was raised first by his grandfather, then by his uncle Abu Talib, a respected Meccan merchant. As a young man, Muhammad worked in trade, leading caravans across Arabia. He earned a reputation among Meccans for honesty, which some sources say earned him the nickname Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. Around age 25, he married Khadijah, a successful merchant roughly 15 years his senior, who had employed him. Islamic tradition holds she was his first and, while she lived, only wife. Muhammad reportedly grew troubled by the moral state of Meccan society and took to retreating alone to a cave on Mount Hira, outside the city, to reflect. According to Islamic tradition, in the year 610, the angel Gabriel appeared to him there and delivered the first words of what Muslims believe to be revelation from God and the beginning of the Quran. Tradition says the experience frightened him deeply. He returned home shaken, and Khadijah comforted him and became, according to Islamic accounts, the first person to accept his message. This moment in the year 610 is where Muslims mark the beginning of Islam. For the first few years, Muhammad shared his message privately with close family and friends. Early followers reportedly included Khadijah, his cousin Ali, and his friend Abu Bakr. When Muhammad began preaching publicly, his message that there was one God and that wealth and status meant nothing before him challenged both the religious and economic order of Mecca, where pilgrimage to the Kaaba's many shrines was a source of income. Opposition grew. Some of Muhammad's followers, especially those without powerful clan protection, faced harassment and abuse. Historical sources describe this period as increasingly dangerous for the small Muslim community. Facing persecution, a group of early Muslims sought refuge across the Red Sea in Christian Abyssinia, whose king reportedly gave them protection, one of the first recorded instances of interfaith asylum in the story of Islam. Around 619, Muhammad lost both his wife Khadijah and his uncle Abu Talib within a short span. Muslims often call this period the Year of Sorrow. He had lost his closest supporter and his clan protector at once. Islamic tradition holds that around this time, Muhammad experienced a miraculous night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem and then through the heavens, an event Muslims call the Isra and Miraj. With Mecca growing more hostile, Muhammad began looking elsewhere. Pilgrims from the northern oasis city of Yathrib, who had heard of his teachings, invited him to come and mediate disputes among their feuding tribes. In 622, Muhammad and his followers made a decision that would change the course of history. They migrated from Mecca to Yathrib, a journey known as the Hijra. The city was later renamed Medina, the city of the Prophet. This migration marks year 1 of the Islamic calendar. Every Islamic calendar date since has been counted from this journey, not from Muhammad's birth or the first revelation. In Medina, Muhammad became not just a religious teacher, but a political and military leader. He helped draft what historians call the Constitution of Medina, an agreement organizing relations between Muslim, Jewish, and other tribes in the city. Historians still debate the exact original wording of this document, since surviving versions come from later sources, but most agree some real agreement organized the city's diverse communities under Muhammad's leadership. Relations between Medina and Mecca deteriorated into open conflict. Over the next several years, the two sides fought a series of battles, including at Badr and Uhud, as Muhammad's movement grew stronger. In 628, both sides signed a 10-year truce, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. It was a turning point. Even though it seemed to favor Mecca at first, it opened the door for the peaceful spread of Muhammad's message. By 630, Muhammad returned to Mecca largely without bloodshed, after the treaty broke down due to a Meccan-allied attack on his allies. Islamic tradition says he ordered the idols in and around the Kaaba removed, rededicating it to the worship of one God. In the 2 years that followed, delegations from across Arabia came to Medina to pledge allegiance, and most of the peninsula came under Muhammad's influence, a remarkable unification of a region that had never been politically united before. In 632, Muhammad led what would become known as his farewell pilgrimage to Mecca, delivering a sermon that Islamic tradition holds summarized his core teachings on equality, justice, and faith. Muhammad died in Medina in June of 632 at around age 62. His death left the young Muslim community facing an urgent, unresolved question: who would lead it now? This question would shape Islam for centuries to come. Almost immediately, a group of senior companions gathered to decide on a successor. This meeting, later called the event at Saqifa, took place before some of Muhammad's closest family, including his cousin Ali, had even joined the discussion. Abu Bakr, one of Muhammad's earliest followers and closest companions, was chosen as the first caliph, a title meaning successor. Most of the Muslim community accepted this decision, but not everyone agreed. A smaller group believed Muhammad had already designated his son-in-law and cousin Ali as his rightful successor based on statements Muhammad reportedly made. This disagreement is the root of what would later become the Sunni-Shia divide. At its heart, the split wasn't about core beliefs in God or the Quran. It was about a single question: should leadership be chosen by the community, or does it belong within Muhammad's bloodline? Abu Bakr's caliphate and the three that followed, Umar, Uthman, and eventually Ali, are known collectively as the Rashidun or rightly guided caliphs, a term used primarily within Sunni tradition. Within 2 decades of Muhammad's death, Muslim armies had taken large parts of the Byzantine and Persian empires, an expansion historians still consider one of the fastest in recorded history. The third caliph, Uthman, was assassinated in 656 amid growing political unrest over governance and favoritism claims, a crisis that further fractured the young Muslim community. Ali became the fourth caliph, but his rule was contested from the start, leading to Islam's first civil war, known as the Fitna, between his supporters and rival factions. This civil war didn't end the succession crisis. It set the stage for an even more defining tragedy, One we'll cover in a future video, the Battle of Karbala. After Ali's assassination in 661, leadership passed to Muawiyah, founding the Umayyad Caliphate, the first hereditary Islamic dynasty, ruled from Damascus. For those who had supported Ali, this cemented their conviction that leadership had been wrongly taken from the Prophet's family. Out of this succession crisis, two major traditions took shape. Those who accepted the caliphs chosen by the community became known as Sunni Muslims, the majority tradition today. Those who held that leadership belonged with Ali's line became known as Shia Muslims. Despite this early split, Sunni and Shia Muslims share the same core scripture, the same 5 pillars, and trace their faith back to the same man, the same revelation, and the same city. In less than a century, and from Muhammad's birth to the rise of the Umayyads, a small community in the Arabian desert became the foundation of a faith that would eventually reach nearly every part of the globe. Next time you see a mosque or hear about Sunni and Shia communities in the news, you'll know it traces back to one desert city, one uncertain moment of succession, and a question that's still shaping the world today.